Canadians are watching that in horror and want our government to chart a new path.
Carney's got a new plan. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Later today, we'll be seeing Mark Carney announcing his plan to try to win back taxpayers. It's a cheeky little tax cut. We also have Quebec pissed off at Mark Carney for his speech in Davos. Got some other stuff here. Let's jump into this. We've got Mark Carney's itinerary for first day back in Parliament, and well, it looks like he won't be in the House of Commons. He'll be announcing his GST tax cut, which we'll get to in a second here, and he'll be meeting with Doug Ford because he pissed off Doug Ford. Interesting, he's getting some of that one-on-one time that Ford loves so much. Now, I wonder if he'll be mentioning anything with this. We've got AI Minister Evan Solomon saying this.
I will also note that the Privacy Commissioner has started an investigation into X. And again, there was already an investigation before, but he's added an investigation.
So they're investigating X some more, and a little update on the whole Grok situation and the ability to put anyone in a bathing suit. They removed that. It's actually very strict now. You can't put anyone in a bathing suit, anything even remotely close to a bathing suit. So they have cracked down on that. You don't see it all over X anymore. So what are they investigating? And we got this one here. Montreal's wood burning ban starts on October 1st. What a joke. Here we've got Mark Carney leaving for the day. This was yesterday. He's asked about the CUSMA renegotiations. He doesn't care.
Prime Minister, how is your spat with Trump impacting the CUSMA review? What do you think of Trump's comments calling you governor?
Proceeding calmly, comprehensively, and we look forward to engaging in negotiations as they come.
So what do you think going to impact CUSMA at all?
He doesn't care. But what he did tell us there, or what he showed us, was some body language. So he just goes out the door. Nothing happens here. Look at his body language. When he asked about CUSMA, he gives out one of these. Sideways chop.
What do you think of Trump's comments calling you governor?
Proceeding calmly.
1, 2, 3 of them. This is not a body language of something's going well. This is it's not going well. It's done. It's you're out. He's basically saying it's not happening. At least that's what I take from that. No normal person does a sideways chop like that when something's going good. When something's going good, you do this. Thumbs up or some sort of upward hand gesture. So I'm not buying it. Nothing's happening there. What we do know is Carney's coming out with this today. He's going to introduce a grocery rebate. That's right. He's going to save Canada with his grocery rebate. Federal government to introduce grocery rebate. It says here GST credit on Monday is part of a larger suite of affordability measures intended to offset the rising cost of groceries. Yeah, how about you stop spending so much money we don't have and stop jacking up inflation? Two senior government sources speaking on the condition, didn't want to be named, said quarterly GST payments will increase by 25% over the next 5 years. The measure is expected to affect approximately 12 million Canadians. That's right, everyone's going to get our 10 cents off Shake and Bake coupon soon. In reality, it's not 10 cents off Shake and Bake. It says $400 for a calendar year or $33 a month. Yeah, that doesn't do anything when literally the price of a lot of goods have doubled in price. Now, what I thought was interesting is that CTV came out with this panel here talking about how bad food is, the food crisis, food banks, all this kind of stuff. And this is the day before, but I mean, right at the same time Mark Carney comes out with a grocery rebate. Why is this so conveniently timed? Like, oh, we have this big problem. Oh, look, it's Mark Carney to the rescue with $33 a month. I don't know. A little bit fishy.
And then they will also at times point to sort of the constrained fiscal environment they feel they're operating in thanks to the economic crisis we face vis-a-vis the United States. What is your response to that? Like, what is the significance of what you...
When in reality, it's the own economic crisis the liberals created, not the Americans. The Americans, well, Donald Trump, it's just the icing on the cake. This is all the liberals' fault here.
You hope they do against that backdrop?
So what I'm bringing, as I said, and I take it's a huge responsibility to bring these voices to government, but what we're seeing is also a crisis. 2.2 million visits to food banks every single month. Food banks cannot continue to absorb an ever-increasing number of folks who come to our doors.
And that's just it. We can't. We have to get rid of this corrupt government. The system is being taken advantage of by newbies so they can most certainly afford food. I see it all the time at a local food bank. And as people are complaining here, they're sending billions of our dollars overseas, foreign affairs, far off ripoff, our money just disappearing abroad. Now, what we are seeing is after Mark Carney's speech in Davos, he pissed off a lot of Quebecers because he essentially rewrote history of Quebecers in his speech, and they didn't like that. PQ Leader says Mark Carney has effectively launched referendum campaign. So what we're talking about is this. Speaking earlier in the week about the Plains of Abraham in Quebec City, Carney described the 1759 battle as the start of a partnership between French and the English people in Canada and called for national unity. A new political cycle has indeed begun. A new chapter in our history is opening before us, said the PQ leader. Mr. Carney, Quebec does not exist because of Canada. In fact, Quebec has survived in its difference and specificity despite Canada, he added, to a standing ovation. He goes on to say the tradition is one of falsifying facts in history and constantly feeding us lies through federal institutions. He said, we will break with British colonialism and create our own country. Got Terry Newman here from the National Post, senior editor, posting this. Carney's speech did not go over well with Quebecers yesterday. It horribly offended them and was more values word salad. He's also figured out that many Canadians love empty flattery. So we've got a string here of stuff. English Canada and our US counterparts have not realized yet how much a misstep Carney has made in Quebec. When the British troops took over Laville, France, in Quebec City as part of a great partnership, it was actually a bloody forced traumatic invasion on Le Pen's de Abraham, where he was giving his speech, not sitting well in Quebec. We got Steph here breaking this down. Basically, this battle here at Abraham was never a moment of collaboration, saying rewriting this defeat as a founding moment to be celebrated is an insult to the memory of Quebecers. Looks like they didn't vet Carney's speech all that well before he gave it. So Mark Carney is really fueling the fire here, and I wonder if he wants to fuel that fire. Does he want to get rid of Alberta out of Canada because then he'd have a Liberal majority forever? I can't see him wanting Quebec to separate, but I mean, who knows what's going to happen here? What is his plan? Is this just a side effect of it, a nasty side effect he doesn't want? Moving ahead, we got a panel here on CTV. This one wraps up with one of the most wild statements ever by Kathleen Monk.
Scott, I'll start with you. The Prime Minister stopped to talk to reporters today, didn't engage too much on any communications with Trump, just kind of downplayed actually how significant whatever happened with China was. What does that tell you, and how big of a deal do you think this is politically for him?
Well, it's significant, but I thought the Prime Minister's tone was bang on and appropriate, because Donald Trump is a presidential equivalent of a metal spoon in the microwave these days. He's sparking and lighting up all over the place. It's not just Canada. He unloaded 70 True Social postings. So he's lashing out at everyone. We have to take serious his posting and his suggestion that he may oppose a 100% across the board tariffs, but I'm not sure that it is a serious threat. And in that context, taking a bit of time, pointing out that Canada is not negotiating a free trade agreement with China, as Minister LeBlanc did, pointing out, as the Prime Minister did, that there would be severe downsides to Donald Trump actually taking that kind of action. Imagine the increase in the price of gas at the pump for Americans. So taking a breath, not panicking, just being steady and sensible seems to me to be the right play at this moment, particularly as you look at the broader context with how Donald Trump is conducting himself, the isolation he's experiencing internationally, and the divisions he's provoking domestically.
I mean, that should be the approach for any prime minister, if it was a conservative one, and an NDP one, if we had one, or a liberal one, is just to have a steady hand here. We can't rock the boat with Donald Trump. They have way too much power. We're too weak right now. And what's Carney doing? The exact opposite. Pissing him off, poking him in the eye, insulting him at the WF, at recognizing Palestine, everything possible to piss him off, because he needs that majority. He needs a scary Donald Trump.
Yeah, it's interesting because on the face of it, when you see a threat like that from a U.S. president, James, to Scott's point, you have to take it seriously. At the same time, we're just a few months, a few weeks out from the last tariff threat of an additional 10% that Trump levied against us, which was supposed to come because of that Ronald Reagan ad, and then was never spoken of again.
An important point that you just made. Donald Trump has threatened 3 times more tariffs than he's actually ever imposed. So the keep calm, carry on prose of the Prime Minister is the appropriate response. You can't react to everything Donald Trump says and does, but you do have to respond as a nation. And the Prime Minister.
What is James saying here? The keep calm and carry on of what Carney's doing? He's not keeping calm. He's intentionally insulting Donald Trump to piss him off. He wasn't calm at that speech. He could have come out with a speech and just talked in general about how they want to secure NATO nations or secure the world or reduce general threats or the Ukraine-Russia conflict. But instead, he dedicated the entire thing to attacking Donald Trump and hegemon, constantly using the word hegemon, the dominant force that can't be stopped. They're creating all these rules and bullying everybody. The hegemony, the Americans bulldozing their way through. Nobody can stop them. I challenge a reporter, Mackenzie Gray, Kate McKenna, any of these ones that have access to Mark Carney. Ask Mark Carney, how do you feel that you voted to move the headquarters of Brookfield to the heart of the hegemony? Mark Carney's a hypocrite.
Mr. obviously had a very good moment in Davos, to the point where you have Pierre Poilievre, for the first time, I think, ever, praising a sitting Liberal Prime Minister. minister, because Pierre Poilievre recognizes the moment, and the prime minister seems to recognize the moment coming out of his cabinet retreat, that it's time to pivot and move forward and not be disappointed, be internally angry, be publicly stoic. And then when Parliament comes back, and as we move forward, there's never been a bigger barn door open for the Prime Minister of this country with a union of solidarity behind him that is nonpartisan to go forward and do big things and be significant about that. The Super Bowl is around the corner, a couple weeks away. We're supposed to have these sort of installments of major projects across the country. There's a moment here for the Prime Minister to do something really significant and show Canadians that we are united and we're doing big things as a country.
I don't think James has ever visited www.moosechart.com, but he probably should and get a little refresher on who Mark Carney is and what he's doing, because he's not planning on doing big things unless it's going to enrich himself. And most of the stuff is just going to tank our economy.
It will be a really interesting, it feels like, Kathleen, return to Parliament tomorrow for exactly the reason that James lays out. The opportunity for the government is massive. To the point about Pierre Poilievre, like, there's a ton of rhetoric from the opposition, including the Conservatives, actually, at this moment, about advancing those priorities together, which is not something, to be honest, that, like, on any side you normally hear ahead of a return to Parliament, like, at least not in the last little while.
And it speaks to the change in tone and what's needed, right? And that tone shift for the Conservatives is remarkable, that they're willing to cooperate, possibly do joint negotiations with the U.S. But what I found interesting from this morning and the Prime Minister was really the pushback that he got from one journalist. He got basically one question put to him this morning, and it was, have you mortgaged Canadians' affordability because you've angered Trump? And bringing it back to those key issues that Canadians care about like how people are struggling day to day. And Wab Kinew said it best in your best last interview, which was just like, he's got to do all the things at all the time, Prime Minister Carney. He's got to deal with the affordability threats, the political threats, and the electoral instability that the minority is, and then also deal with the geopolitical stuff. But I think what was fascinating is that he did say this morning, the Prime Minister, that there would be some affordability measures coming soon. So what are they?
So that's the one I just mentioned, the GST, $33 a month. It's a whole lot of nothing. And if Mark Carney really cared about this whole situation, affordability, he wouldn't be spending more money. He would be making cuts and reducing inflation and not blowing wide open a big new deficit, carrying on the tradition from Justin Trudeau.
Are they on the agenda? How does he deal with the Conservatives' pushback on affordability, immigration, crime? Can he solve those political challenges so if there is an election, the Liberals are poised to do better or at least answer that big question of affordability on the problem? We've seen them cut taxes in the past. Will they do more in the future?
Yeah, to what degree, Scott, do you think there needs to be like something tangible on that front? I know we're all consumed at this sort of esoteric level with everything going on with the United States and moral clarity and all those things, but like, people are worried about the same thing they were worried about last year and the year before, a lack of affordability.
I'm not sure now's the exact moment where we need to just, stencil a check and send it to every household. I don't know that that's the appropriate response. I think giving voice to the concerns.
It's funny. That's exactly what they're doing. $33. Here you go. We saved your life now, guys, right? You can vote for us now. What a joke.
People have, making certain that Canadians don't watch the Prime Minister see how he's involved in these discussions, both internationally and across the border with Donald Trump, and worry that maybe the Prime Minister and the government have forgotten about the daily struggles that people are experiencing. You got to make certain that you address that. You got to make certain that you connect all of this instability that stems from Trump with the challenges that people are feeling and with your policy remedies. But I don't know that they need to do something in the immediate term, again, in a panicky way. And that really is not the recipe the Prime Minister tends to follow. I think more important than anything, we shouldn't underestimate the connection that Canadians themselves make between Donald Trump's erraticism and their own economic situation. I do think Canadians lay this at the feet of Donald Trump, and that's why it was smart of Pierre Poilievre to ignore all those conservatives who are jamming the pages of the National Post with numbskull commentary, trying to align themselves and, say, actually Trump's right. That is not the play that Pierre Poilievre supported. He knows that that is electoral disaster, and instead saying we got to chart a similar course.
He's right there. In this environment, Pierre came out and said, we will work with the Liberals to get things done. He pushed back on Trump and his comments in Afghanistan. I'll show that next, because he knows how Canadians get all amped up. They get the TDS. They don't know what to think. They don't think rationally about the whole situation with Trump. We're in this bad situation because of the Liberals, with the icing on the cake here coming from Trump. But of course, Liberals are blaming all of it on Trump. All the past 10 years, the economic failures of Justin Trudeau and now now Mark Carney, is all being placed on Donald Trump. There's no real way to rationalize with these liberals. It's best to just take a pro-Canada stance like Pierre's done and try to get as many of the swing voters as possible. We got Aaron Gunn pushing back against Trump's comments, and our troops, NATO's troops over there. While I might not be politically correct, I feel something needs to be said regarding President Trump's recent comments that diminished the contributions of NATO allies in Afghanistan and suggested NATO countries stayed a little back from the front lines during the conflict. So he goes on to mention, how many people were wounded and ended, and Canadian troops were not on the back lines, and as well as other NATO troops were not on the back lines. The UK suggest otherwise is insulting, outrageous, and completely unacceptable to more than 40,000 Canadians who served during the Afghan war. And that's in regards to this here. Stayed a little off the front lines.
So it is an interesting perspective to say that European troops, or certainly British troops, were nowhere near the front line. As I say, that wasn't my experience.
So there's a British troop saying this. And Pierre Poilievre coming out with the same thing here. President Trump must know that after 9/11 terror lord attacks on America, over 40,000 brave Canadians fought tooth and nail in Afghanistan over 13 years. They did so on the front lines in the most dangerous districts in the mountains of Tora Bora to the deserts of Kandahar. 158 of them paid the ultimate price. Thousands suffered the scars. We thank them, we honor them, remember them. Our American friends should too. So this is very well said, very statesman-like response. And this is typical Trump. He over-embellishes things or brings down other situations. But when you're talking about troops and fighting back, that's where you start to piss off people, especially when it comes to military.
Crystallize it in one line. Americans are watching as President Trump chooses to kidnap and kill his own citizens as opposed to lowering prices. Canadians are watching that in horror and want our government to chart a new path and a new way forward.
Okay, I'm going to leave.
Wow. So I have been looking around. There are people sending this to Donald Trump, wondering if he's going to sue the daylights out of Kathleen Monk for making such a statement. Now, what I think she's talking about is what happened with ICE agents ending someone. I can show you the basics here. I can't play the whole video, but basically there was a couple of people, I think, blocking the road. This lady, and then there's a guy next to her. So ICE agents come out and push them off the street. So this guy here was also blocking. He was also trying to shield her. He gets maced in the face, and this just escalates because this guy here has a pew-pew that these ICE agents don't know about. So I think he's trying to help her up. Then they both fall down.
What's wrong with you? Honestly.
So now you've got 4 or 5 ICE agents trying to arrest this guy.
Yeah.
One of these guys says he's got a pew-pew. This guy here, I think, grabs it and then runs this way. Now, I've heard 2 different versions of this story. One is that when he's running away, the pew-pew accidentally discharges. And then what I can't show you is these guys then start pew-pewing this guy on the ground and end him, which is what we see here. I can't play any of it, but the guy's done. Other angles, people are saying that a pew-pew bounces off the ground here, meaning that the guy on the ground pulled out a pew-pew and started using it. I don't know what's true. I don't know what is what aside from this video, and there's a couple other angles where the guy over here is running this direction with a pew-pew in his hand, but I don't know if it's his or if he got it from that guy. There's a whole lot of confusion here, and I'm just going to leave it at that. But this looks awful for the Trump administration. So I'm pretty sure that's what Kathleen Monk is referring to here, but her statements are wild.
Americans are watching as President Trump chooses to kidnap and kill his own citizens as opposed to lowering prices. Canadians are watching that in horror and want our government to chart a new path and a new way forward.
Kidnap and end their own citizens. Coming from someone whose organization has spent millions of dollars to slander Pierre Poilievre, she has no right to be on national television running her mouth ever.